You're listening to Constant Counseling, a podcast for mental health students and professionals. In today's episode, you're going to hear my interview with Mark Babcock, a clinical mental health counseling student at Florida Gulf Coast University. And we're going to hear a little bit about his transition from going to working in law to now entering into the field of counseling. Let's go ahead and take a listen. All right, everybody. Welcome to Constant Counseling, where sometimes counseling is a constant process. This is a podcast for mental health students and professionals. My name is DC Constant, and I am a PhD student in marriage and family therapy at Florida State University. And I have here today someone from my master's program, Mark Babcock, who is a clinical mental health counseling student at Florida Gulf Coast University. Now, Mark, just in a brief moment, can you just introduce a little bit about yourself and where you are in your journey right now in the program?
Sure. My name is Mark Babcock. I'm about more than halfway through my master's program at Florida Gulf Coast University. Before that, I worked as an attorney for 23 years, which I can't believe I did that long. I'm still an attorney, but my focus now is to go into mental health counseling. It was kind of a passion of mine for a while, and I thought about doing it. And a few years back, I had some more motivation to do it and just try it. It was very scary and it's still scary. But so far, so good. More, like I said, more than halfway through it, and I haven't regretted it yet. And so I'm looking forward to the transition and helping people. That's the main thing. Is I've always felt the need to help people, and I mean, I did that as an attorney, but I was a litigator, and litigation. You help some people, but mostly you're making money for people that already have money. So it's not a very fulfilling profession. And I wanted to do something more in my second career. And I have a lot of years left, hopefully, to work and do things that I'm really passionate about. So, I kind of took the chance a couple of years ago to start this program, and I'm really grateful I did.
So it sounds like it was almost like the ultimate pivot for you in some ways.
It was an ultimate pivot. The funny story was I had a buddy of mine who was a therapist, and I had friends over to my house, and I'd put a pool in my house, and I had like a pool party, and I had a bunch of people over, and my buddy John said to me, I did it wrong. I should have made money first and then did what I loved. And and it was funny at the time. It was a funny little comment, but it really hit me later on that night. And I was like, I've been successful as an attorney and very fortunate in that regard. And now if I want to, I can choose something as a second career I'm really passionate about and I love doing. And I had lost my passion for litigating, and it was kind of shallow, and I wanted to do something more fulfilling. So I sent out applications. I got in the Florida Gulf Coast. The other twist was that I live on the East Coast, which I think you know about. So there was a travel component to it that honestly has been the biggest challenge so far, is the traveling back and forth. But I'm one of those people, when I get my mind into something, I'm really focused and dedicated. So I'm really happy I did, and thus far it's been really great.
Something I'm curious about here, Mark, is, you talk about this aspect of fulfillment, right? So what do you think was missing in your law career that you were able to see present in your counseling career, especially at this point we're at right now as a student?
That's a great question. So as an attorney, like I touched on before, you're making money for people or corporations or clients and things like that. And there's a mental challenge to that. And there's like a strategy challenge to that. And it's fulfilling to a degree. And I started volunteering at a nonprofit about 8-9 years ago that provided therapy to young adults and kids that had been the victims of abuse and neglect. Wow. And interacting with the kids and the people that I was working with was really fulfilling. I really connected with the people and vice versa. And it felt great. It felt like I was meant to do it. It felt like I was good at it. I felt better at being someone that could help people than I was as an attorney. And I was more passionate about being a counselor at that moment. And I just felt like I'd be great at it. And I loved connecting with people and helping people kind of sort through their issues. I have a lot of experience with that. and I've had people that have helped me along the way. And, I just got really excited about it.
It sounds like you liked the mark that you saw in that process.
Yeah, I did. I did. And I've always kind of felt like I connected with people and helped people along the way with issues they've had. And I've always felt kind of a skill with that.
Yeah.
And I liked playing that role and I liked facilitating that for people. And people urged me to do it. And therapists that I knew, gave me great feedback and thought, you'd be really good at this. You're talented. People connect well with you and you've got good, honest insight. And I'm a little
Mm.
older than most, so I have some life experience too.
Add it to
So
the mix, right?
yeah, yeah. So I think with like younger people, I have some insight on life experience that can also be a good tool.
Wow. So there's a part of you that you kind of felt you wanted to kind of gravitate more towards the fulfillment, and you started to notice like the part of you that liked this mark that was coming out when you were
Yeah.
getting more and to understand this work. What did you notice particularly about yourself that was different with how you were showing up in the counseling space as opposed to the law space?
I felt like in the law space, you've got your clients, you've got bosses that you might be working for, and you have a judge ultimately that's going to decide whether you're doing a good job or not. And you could do the greatest job as an attorney and advocate for your client really well and all of those things and still ultimately lose if you have a bad
Mm,
case or something goes wrong. Whereas I thought counseling is a one-on-one, more immediate, more satisfying dynamic with people. And I didn't have to rely on other people's opinions of my worth or what I was doing to
mm,
see if I was doing a good job. So
wow.
that was a big part of it too.
Wow. Okay. So that's one of the biggest changes you noticed that you felt like, okay, the way you felt about it, but then not relying on other people and to have the self efficacy and the self worth measured off of that.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. I'm just kind of curious because I think you're still working currently as an attorney, right? As well, while you're in the
Well,
program.
I've actually scaled back a lot of what I was doing. So I'm still doing
Okay.
some work on the side, but I've really kind of transitioned into being a full-time student and trying to accelerate graduating as soon as
Mm.
possible. So I'd say it's like 80% FGCU and counseling and 20% law.
Mm. So when you first started the program, Mark, like, okay, I'm curious about what did it look like managing your responsibilities at that time, even compared to now? What was that like? I see a smile on your
Chaos,
face.
bro. Chaos. I look, DC, I look back on it. I have no idea how the hell I did it. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was working full time. I have a son who I have half the time who I love and
Yeah.
he's a big part of my life and he's a priority. So I was juggling everything in the world and I was floundering, but I was succeeding and I was passing. I had great professors at FGCU. Dr. Frank Goritz, who
Yes,
was
yes.
was more than, supportive, and everyone there was really supportive. The mental health counseling program is night and day from the law program. Like law school is competitive, it's brutal, it's cutthroat. I went from that to I'm
Yeah.
coloring in coloring books as a mindfulness exercise before class. I'm like, this is great. Like, what are we doing? This is a 180. Um, so I just juggled it, man, and it was super stressful and probably too much to do, but I got through it. And I would tell anyone, if I can give some advice, is you may think like you're failing and it's difficult and you want to quit and all these things, but like just take the next step. Like just try to get to the next day. You're gonna go through those doubts, you're gonna go through those failing thoughts, but just don't quit. Try to stick with it. And that's the key.
Keep pushing through. I'm curious, Mark, here is okay, so you're managing at that time, full-time work. Obviously, I know you scaled down as of now, but also still managing being a father and other responsibilities. What did you find to be the most helpful for you throughout this time?
That's a great question. Taking some time during the week for myself and
Mm,
trying to carve out time of just doing nothing to recharge and be a little bit selfish. And you've got to do that because you will burn out if you don't. And that's kind of the key. And when I had time off, I just, unplugged completely and didn't do any work and didn't do anything and just tried to relax and tried to focus on time with my son and really compartmentalize all those things. But it wasn't always easy.
Mm, mm. I can definitely identify with that because I know for myself coming into this program, I also had a commute because at the time I was living in Port St. Lucie.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that first year. Yeah, a little fun fact, right? So I was
Wait.
commuting.
You commuted from Port St. Lucie to Naples?
Yeah, all the way to Fort Myers. Yeah, I would commute. I only did it for the 3 days. I think I would stay somewhere for the 3 days, and then I would at that third day back, I would come back here. Then obviously, that I think that second year I was like, yeah, I need to get a place over there because that
Right.
commute was a lot at that time. But yeah, it
Right.
was quite the sacrifice. But however, I will say I noticed that because when I was in my undergrad, oh my God, I had multiple transitions. It was what psychology. It was I was pre-law actually for the longest time.
Oh,
Yeah, for the
okay.
longest time. But then I came back to my love of wanting to do therapy. And obviously in the master's program, I was there before I graduated, but I found that there was a different way I showed up in the work. And it kind of sounds like you were saying something similar for yourself as well, if I'm not mistaken. Or would you say it's something else?
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I think it also really comes down to if you have a passion about it and you really want to do it, you'll find a way. And
Mm,
I think that's the biggest thing is to figure out if it's really something you want and you want to work towards. You'll find a way to get it done. And most everyone in the program are super smart and talented and can do it. And you just got to keep going from day to day.
Something I'm also like wondering here too with you is like as you're going through this process of the program, what do you notice yourself having the most interest in when it comes to counseling? What are those things that really stand out to you in this process, would you say?
I would say I the actual counseling, which I haven't gotten to yet. I'm doing practicum in a couple months. Like I want to get to that point
Okay.
to
Okay.
actually see the people and like do what we're studying to do,
Yeah.
because I've been taking classes this whole time and some of them are great. I've learned a lot, but I want to just do it. I want to get in and start doing it in practice. But I've learned a lot in the classes. One of the biggest things is, like I said, that I'm a little older. So the technology is a little different. The
Update a
terminology is
bit.
different. Like most everyone in the cohort is probably in their 20s, early 30s. And they'll say things like, I have no idea what the hell that means? So I kind of feel like the old dude in the room, like, what does that mean? But it's cool because I came in afraid of that, but everyone has been super supportive and everyone's kind of in it together, I think for the most part. And support, like I came in, I had some classes with your cohort and you guys were
Yeah.
great and
Yeah.
welcoming and all those good things. So that plays
Sounds
a
like a real
lot in
sense
it
of
too.
community.
Yeah, the community was really cool because we're all going through the same
Mm,
thing.
yeah. I want to ask you this too. I'm curious about like, okay, because you've been to school, undergrad, law school. What does it feel like to be back in school? What are you noticing about yourself being back in school again? What do you notice
My
about yourself
biggest
in that way?
struggle was the technology. And like I was spoiled. I had an assistant, excuse me. So my assistant, she would do everything for me. I was like a little baby, like
Mhm.
Excel spreadsheets and all those kinds of things. She would like help figure out for me. And going back to school was just everything's online, everything's electronic. So transitioning into that was different. And like I said, just trying to fit in with everybody. I think fitting in with your cohort, making friends, confiding in them, telling them, hey, I'm scared. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm failing or whatever. And they're feeling the same thing. We're all feeling the same emotions. So I would definitely tell people in cohorts to confide in your friends, find good people, and that's a huge valuable tool to use.
So there was a power in the community of the cohort for you.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Don't you
What
feel that
impact?
way? I mean, that was that a big thing for you?
Oh yeah, honestly, I think that's what made this program, I think, a game changer for me was not just having a cohort, but a cohort where we were all connected. I mean, I think days before graduation, we went to one of our core members' house. We had like a potluck, and it was just like that was. I think that was the biggest thing because when you have people with you who understand, because there's certain things that go on as a grad student, but then even as a mental health counseling grad student, that's just a little bit different. Because I always say that I always say mental health counseling, our journey is similar to the grad students, but it's a little bit, it has its differences in a way, right? Because it's a very relational work. So I
Yeah.
think having people who understand what you're going through in real time, who you can talk to, go to advice, go to for support, it definitely makes such a key difference. Like I think that was like that made the experience of this program, I think, just night and day for me, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think so. And I think even our professors,
Yeah.
most of our professors are super supportive. They'll check in with us at the beginning of class, especially the first year. I think they were all Dr. Goritz, Dr. Wynn, they were all like, "Hey, how are you doing? How's everyone feeling?" And just saying like, "I'm feeling like shit, like I'm losing my mind." Just getting that out is, that's cathartic. It helps.
Yeah, yeah. I think I feel like what I even saw was powerful was, I remember with Dr. Nguyen and it was first and she did her mindfulness. And like we're gonna go into a mindfulness, meditation before we even start the class. And I was like, whoa, talk about actually like not only telling us about self-care, but actually implementing it in the work in the classroom. I felt like that was powerful.
Yeah, it was huge. I thought it was great. I thought it was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that was extremely powerful to have seen that. And then just like that power of the cohort of the community and what that looks like and seeing that effects that has on that. What was that like in law school? Was there a cohort there for you? What was that like? I'm just curious. I gotta ask.
The cohort was everyone wanting to see you fail so they could step on your head to get above you to get a higher class rank. That's like what it was. It was very cutthroat. It was very competitive. The mood, the atmosphere, the dynamic is completely different. You had professors that weren't trying to get you to fail, but they were there to make it really hard your first year to give you an idea of what it's like to go in front of a bad judge or a judge that's, difficult or will argue with you or whatever. So, not that they were trying to get you out, but they made it very difficult for you to stay, to kind of harden you up. Whereas FGCU has been the total opposite. And I mean, there's some competition. There's some people in the cohort that can be a little competitive or whatever. But for the most part, I think the people that I gravitated towards were very supportive and just kind.
Mm. So then you noticed then from law school to now in your journey with the FGC cohort and the counseling program, like how it feels more of a supportive environment for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's indicative of what we need to be as clinicians and what we need to do with our clients.
Mm.
So I think if there are people in the cohort that can't, show that or exhibit that in that forum, then even with clients, it's going to be difficult for them to do.
Mm. Yeah, I think that was something I noticed as well during my time at GC was kind of like how even though people we all came from different backgrounds, different walks of life, we were able to really connect and have this level of support for one another that I've noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your biggest challenge, getting into it?
I think the biggest challenge is for one, I would say that just getting back into the idea of I think I don't want to say school in a sense, but because even though I came straight from undergrad, my undergraduate journey was a little bit different. I had taken a year off in undergrad and 1 year turned into 8. So it
Yeah.
took me 12 years in that journey. And I think when I came back to my final semester at FIU, then it was like, okay, I was going to grad school right afterwards. So I think it was really adjusting, but I have to say the environment was incredibly supportive. I had no expectations going in. I had really no expectations going to the program. I was like, I just want to come back to my first love of wanting to be a therapist. And I think that seeing that in the program, the support and everything, I think it made it worthwhile. But I also think because there was a passion and interest for me that showed up so differently in this process than I did with other things in undergrad. And I felt like it allowed me to push through certain things. So I felt like it allowed me to really see beyond certain things that were happening. I was able to see the vision that I wanted for
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I feel like that was extremely helpful there. And I feel like looking at it too with your journey in the program, what do you think was the most we talked about the cohort, but besides the cohort, what was another resource, if so, that you found that was the most helpful for you?
A lot of friends that were very supportive. I had like close family and people in my life that were very supportive and gave me encouragement saying, yeah, you'd be great at this. You should do this. So that was a big thing. But there was also a lot of which I'm sure you've gotten. There's a lot of like, you're doing what? Wait a second. You've been an attorney for 23 years. You have a great job, all this kind of stuff. Like on the surface, it's all perfect. Why are you going into
Mm,
this? So there was also a lot of like weird
shock.
looks and shocked and questions and what the hell are you doing? And I think when you tell
Mm,
people you're a therapist, there can be one of two reactions, or you want to be a therapist. It's like, oh, that's so great. You'd be so good at it. And other people are like standoffish and like, oh, they're going to analyze me, or like, they're kind of
right.
put off by it. So I got a lot of mixed reactions, man. It
How
was
did you how
interesting.
did you manage with those reactions? How did you manage that, would you say?
You know what? It was tough, man. I'm not gonna lie. There were a lot of times where I thought to myself, dude, what are you doing? Like,
Mm,
is this what you should be doing? Are you gonna be good at this? There was a financial hit I was gonna take. And
mm,
so there was a lot of doubt. It wasn't all like, lollipops and candy canes. It was like a lot of doubt, a lot of nights where I was like, what am I doing? I'm driving home from school at 10 o'clock at night on Alligator Alley, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? So it was difficult. And honestly, there's kind of when you tell people you're an attorney, people are like, oh, that's so, that they tend to think it's prestigious and all these things.
yeah.
And people have a different reaction when you tell them you're a therapist. So
Mm,
honestly, I used to get a charge out of, oh, I accomplished a lot. I'm an attorney and accomplished, and that was cool. And not getting that or getting a different reaction definitely is a transition. But
mm,
I know the people that are really close to me and whose opinions I really trust support me, and that's the most important thing.
yeah. It seems like it also sometimes this program where, where you're making a shift sometimes having to really, I think, protect your space as a person, because of the
Yeah.
transition that you're in, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, that's I don't always broadcast what I'm doing because I almost feel like I want to get there and tell people, kind of what I've accomplished before I actually get there. But yeah, it's definitely a transition. It's definitely takes a lot of explanation, and people ask me all the time, "Why'd you do this?" And I don't mind explaining but people have different reactions to it for sure.
What would you tell the people who are trying to manage maybe some of the shock from the folks around them as they're pivoting in another career? What would you say to that?
I would say stay true to really what you believe in yourself. If you really believe this is what you want to do and what you're made to do, try to block the noise out. Tap into people in your life that are supportive, support you, support your vision. It's like anything else. People are going to have an opinion and tell you what they think, even if you don't want it. But if you believe it in yourself, stick with it and just keep plugging away and try to block out the noise.
Mm, mm. So trying to find a way to kind of like remove yourself from some of those things you may not feel is always so supportive.
Yeah, yeah. And if people really press you on it, tell them, listen, if you support me and love me, this is something I'm passionate about. I want your support and your love with this. And if you can't, that's your problem, not mine. But I want you to be part of this journey and I want you to experience this with me. And usually the good people that really love and care about you will hop on board. That's my experience.
Mm, mm. What were some common misconceptions you felt like you had to manage or deal with as you were navigating this transition?
That's a good question. Misconceptions were why are you kind of bailing on a lucrative career and a very stable career to do this? Something must have happened to me in a bad way that
Mm,
caused this shift. And people, I think people can sometimes assume therapists are going through their own conflict and want to solve everyone else's issues when they've got stuff going on. So maybe that was part of it. But like I said, people's initial shock and negativity, it was tough to deal with, but I just believe in myself. I believe what I'm doing. I know what I want to do. And I have lots of goals and visions for the future with this field. And I didn't see that with law. And I saw kind of a very empty, shallow, lifeless existence where this has opened my eyes and I'm super passionate about it.
So with your last career, you couldn't see a vision, but with this one, you could.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. I could see a vision in the old one and it sucked. It was like it was a
It didn't
vision
resonate
of
with
like
you. Yeah.
misery and unfulfillment and all those things. That's not the kind of vision I wanted. So, yeah.
Mm. I'm curious, what were your expectations coming into the program, if you had any?
My expectations were that it was going to be a lot shorter. I thought it
Mhm.
was going to be like 2 years, okay? And I thought it was going to be like just going into seeing clients, learning some questions to ask, and then boom, we're done. I had no idea how involved and how detailed and how intricate the program was and the profession was.
Mm,
So I have a totally new idea of what being a therapist entails and what we've had to do to get there. It's no joke, man. It's like, I mean, it's as
yeah.
long as law school was, and it's very thorough, very detailed.
So tell me about this, because you talk about being very detailed, very thorough, and this whole different perception you have. What were some of the ideas you had about counseling and therapy, and what are the ideas you have about it now? I'm just curious about that compare and contrast here.
I thought it was going to be like a glorified, not gossip session, that's not the right word, but like, when you talk to your friends and you help them, I
Hmm.
thought it was just going to be that kind of thing on steroids, just like
Okay.
more involved. And I didn't understand the ethical structure of it, which
Mm,
was a lot more impressive than I knew. And, just the actual technique of counseling as opposed to, hey, let's just talk about the world or whatever. It's like it's a lot more intricate and layered than I thought it was.
mm. Yeah, that happens a lot because I think the general public has this idea of what therapy and counseling is, but then I remember going to the program, it's like, oh, this is actually what it actually really is and how this looks in practice when you learn this stuff compared to, some of
Yeah.
these ideas I think the general public had.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think people having people always say, "Oh, I could be a therapist. I'm a therapist to all my friends. Like I could do this." And I'm like, "Well, it's the same as saying you watch Law and Order and you could be an attorney." It's like it's not that simple, man. It's like there's a lot more to it, and you got to get licensed. You got to go to school for 3 years. It's a big deal.
But sometimes people see on TV is like this 10-minute moment, but they don't understand stuff again. So even sometimes people have the idea of like, oh, yeah, I want to go to a therapist and just get some advice. I'm just like,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
actually don't do that.
Right, right. We're not supposed to do that. So, and that's another thing I'm trying to like work on is kind of like undoing the idea of what I
Mm,
thought therapy was so that we
mm,
can serve the clients better.
So what is it like now when, you're in spaces or you see certain things out there with kind of coupled with your old idea of what counseling and therapy was to how you understand it now? What are some of your reactions to that?
Well, it's funny because I'm taking counseling techniques right now with Dr. Wynn, and she's teaching us how to have open-ended questions and saying things like, "Can you share more about this?" As
Mm,
opposed to pinpoint like yes, no answer questions, things like that. And, in my head, I'm still thinking like an attorney, and I have a checklist of questions to go down. And I know you have to do some of that in the beginning, but like
the
I have to
pros, yeah.
switch the mentality from taking a deposition or questioning a witness in court as opposed to dealing with the client in a therapeutic relationship. So the types of
Mm.
questions we ask are different, the tone is different, and just learning that's interesting.
So it sounds like because you've been an attorney for so many years, you even it almost sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong here, almost like this idea of I have to know when to leave Mark the attorney sometimes at the door because it's been so ingrained from years, supposed to now Mark the future therapist. Does that sound right? Am I right?
Exactly, 100% right. Like as an attorney, if I know someone's lying and they're full of crap, I get to call them out and like, ream them in a court of law. But if I have a client who may be not telling me the truth or someone I just don't like, I
Mhm.
can't have that mentality and that energy. I have to be very supportive and forgiving and make sure their well-being is at the forefront as opposed to kind of sniffing out, their BS or something like that.
They're creating an open space for them, it kind of sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious, like, okay, is there any skills that you have as Mark the attorney that you felt like are kind of serving you as you're coming into this profession?
I mean, figuring out if someone's full of crap is a big one. And like determining, hey, are they being authentic with me? Are they lying to me? That's a big one. Just having kind of intuition as to people that are being authentic and telling the truth is probably one. I don't tell people I'm an attorney because that's not what I'm doing now.
Mhm.
But I just think instinctually there's a lot of overlap to it, but there's a different energy and tone as a therapist, I think.
Mm, mm. What is that contrast in tone there, would you say?
Kind of like I said, it's instead of setting someone up to figure out if they're lying and having, let's say, documentation that backs up their lying and evidence that they're lying, in a therapeutic relationship, it seems like we need to be unconditionally supportive and
Mm.
be in their corner. We can push them a little bit and challenge them a
A
bit,
gentle
but
challenge, yeah.
just the tone of the energy and how the questions we ask have to be different, I think.
So it almost sounds like, based on some of the things you shared about how it is with law and the tone of the question, it sounds like law in certain ways, and I'm trying to oversimplify, but it sounds like almost like it was about this outcome, whereas you notice with therapy, it's about this process.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's definitely like you want to get to facts of a situation and you want to like solve it or prove or disprove a case, get to the end of it. Whereas therapy is more of a evolution of process and trying to open up a person and get deeper into what's going on with them.
Okay. Wow. That's really like insightful. They're looking at that how the outcome and the process. So what is that like now, knowing that you work with clients in law. Like I said, you're going to the outcome, but now working with clients in therapy, it's not working through that process. What are you noticing about yourself as you're learning some of these elements?
I think some of them do overlap. You do, as an attorney, you need to hear your clients. You need to let them know they're being heard and
Hmm.
you do support them and you have their best interest in mind. But it's kind of an artificial support. Whereas, because they're your client, you're getting paid by them, things like that, and you need to be a good advocate for them. And you do that with integrity and honesty. But the end game is different with a client in therapy because you want to show them that support for their good, their mental health, wellness, and things like that, as opposed to monetary gain. It's a different kind of goal.
Mm, different kind of goal there. You talked about earlier about you really having a vision. Well, you had visions in both professions in law and your counseling, but you were more resonant with the vision you have counseling. What would you say is your vision for counseling? That's an abstract question there, but how would you describe that vision for Mark?
The vision is I want to help people ultimately. And I
Mm,
want I want to give people insight as to why they're maybe failing or there's challenges in their life mentally that they don't know why. And to give them insight, whether it's relationships and work or intimate relationships or kids or wherever, if they're stuck and they don't know why they're stuck and they don't know why their patterns aren't working, I would love to help them gain insight as to why they're doing those things and get them unstuck. And I also
mm,
want to have open dialogue and communicate with people that maybe don't know how to do that haven't done that, want to be able to do that, and really want to help themselves in their relationships. Like I really love that. That's a big goal of mine.
So you really want to help people understand these roadblocks that are
Yeah,
going on in their life.
because I've had those and I've been stuck in patterns that have been negative, and I had really insightful people help me. And, through my experience, I've seen why I was doing those things. And to really help those who are also struggling with the similar issues is something I would love to do.
Hmm. And are there any areas in counseling and therapy that you see yourself gravitating towards?
Yeah, I want to do private counseling for private practice initially and get that experience, get that feel for that. And then I want to branch off into podcasting, group therapy. I have a huge vision of what I want to do and how to like broaden that scope to help people.
Wow.
And I got to take it step by step, but I have dreams, man. I have goals.
So you were just racing with ideas here.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm ready to go, man.
Wow, wow. I want to, because I know we're getting close to the time to agree to record for today, but I want to ask you here is, love how I just said I'm going to close to our time. I feel like I'm in session. We're
Check the
getting close to
clock,
our
bro.
time. But, what kind of, we kind of talked about you describing your vision, but how would you describe the impact that Mark wants to make with his clients in this field?
You're a great question asker, DC. Um, I really want people to feel connected with me. I want people to feel like I'm talking with them, not at them. And I want
Yeah,
them to
yeah.
feel like I'm not above them, but I'm on the same level as them. I just know a little more, and I want to share that with them. And I love connecting with people. It's like my favorite thing in the whole world. And I just want people to feel better about themselves and have more insight into why they're doing certain things and how to help them achieve their goals and feel like they have self-respect and self-love and all those things. That's like my biggest goal I have.
Mm. Okay, I hear that. I hear that too, because like helping people understand almost sounds like these options that are available to them.
Yeah, well, I look. I know in my experience, I just didn't know why I was doing certain things wrong, and I was raised a certain way, and I had a certain upbringing that kind of instilled that in me, and I
Yeah.
didn't know how to do it differently. And I think there's a lot of people that struggle with that, not knowing how to do it differently. And I think especially with men, I think men struggle with opening up. I mean, you and I can relate to this.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they're very reluctant to tap into emotion and talking about feelings and all those kinds of things. But there's a huge need, man. There's a lot of guys that are struggling out there, and men struggle with mental health more than anyone. So
Yeah.
I think that if I can help, I can kind of provide some insight and an option for them to say, oh, Mark, I kind of feel comfortable with him. He has some insight. I really want to get to know him more. I think as men, we can really serve guys well.
Yeah, that's a powerful point made too, because it's like when I looked at it too throughout like the practicum internships and working with clients in those clinics is how helping the clients find their language is such a key because sometimes it's like when people grow up as children and they don't have the language to express themselves and they grow up into these adults that still don't have language to express themselves. And even my work with couples, I've noticed that where sometimes the male partners, it's like they have something they want to say, but they just don't have the words. Sometimes it just stays buried underneath. But once
Yeah.
they have that language, and we use our skills, as counselors in that session with them and help them carve out the words of what they're trying to say, oh, the impact that it makes.
Yeah. 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 I think men, we don't know how to express it. It's like a language we don't know how to speak because we're
Yeah.
taught that we shouldn't do it. And women can do it a little more freely than we can, but we're never given the tools or the instruction or the guidance growing up as men on how to tap into that and do that. So
Yeah.
learning how to do that in itself is a huge deal.
Yeah. Because I've seen so many times, like when, like I said, when I'm working with these couples, you'll sometimes hear some of them kind of even generalize, well, this person's a man, men don't know how to express emotions. And as my work, I'm like, okay, is it that men don't know how to express emotions or don't feel safe to? That's two different
Right.
things, you
Right.
know? you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
it's like the emotions are there, but if you don't feel safe to express it, it's not going to come out
Right. Right.
because it's
For
fear of the
sure.
consequences. Whether it was in family of origin, you felt like, okay, you know what? Like I was told in family, we don't express it, we don't do this. Or if you're with a partner or wherever else in your life that's maybe reinforcing some of these aspects, it's not going to be okay for me to express my emotions. But it doesn't mean the emotions aren't still there.
Right. Yeah. I think it's huge.
Yeah, yeah. So, Mark, before we conclude today's podcast, this is amazing, Mark. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So amazing having you on today. Because I was like, you know what? It would be powerful to have Mark on because I think so many people are in that transition of going from one career to another. And that's like, how does that look? And then I know sometimes where, I heard it was that Sue Johnson, the founder of the EFT theory, where she said sometimes we can feel this level of sadness and depression. We're facing our vulnerability by ourselves. And when you're in a journey like that, in a transition, which that does make me wonder if you knew anybody who did something similar, pivot like
No.
this.
No. I didn't know anyone
So
who
you're the
did something.
trendsetter.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. I guess.
In
I
your life that you
guess.
know of. Yeah, that you know of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Wow.
it's tough, man. I would tell anyone. Yeah, I mean, when you're younger, I couldn't fathom, when I was older doing this transition. But as you get older, you realize you do have more time and you can make a shift and change careers if it's something you really want to do, even if you're older and you have doubts. But it's going to be scary. It's going to be weird. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's not impossible. You can do it.
So I'm gonna close this out here, Mark. I want to thank you for coming on this podcast today. And if this is your first podcast, you're the first guest out here.
Yeah, man. I feel honored. I'm glad you reached out to me. It's been great, dude. It's good catching up with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any final words before we kind of get ready to kind of close out this episode, or anything that you want people to know?
Just kind of what I said. Just stay strong, and reach out to people that you care about and who support you. You're gonna have doubts. They're gonna creep in. Don't run away from it. It's natural. And if you really want this and you're passionate about it, you're gonna get it done, even when you think you can't. So just keep plugging away.
Perfect words there, Mark. Perfect. Well, I want to thank you all for listening to today's podcast of Constant Counseling, where sometimes counseling is a constant process. And I want to thank Mark coming on today and sharing a little bit of his story. And I hope you guys are able to listen and tune in and subscribe to this podcast. You guys are able to. And I will see you all on the next one. Thanks so much. What an interview that was. Special thanks to Mark for coming on. This has been Constant Counseling, where sometimes counseling is a constant process. Thanks for listening.